If you ever stared at your makeup bag or stepped into Sephora and thought, where do I start? This video is for you. I'm here today to show beginners how you can go from this to this. And all you have to do is follow along. There are so many people out there claiming that you have to buy all these expensive products and do all these special techniques in order to get a good face of makeup, and that's just not the truth. So welcome to my beginner-friendly makeup tutorial. P.S. I just posted a full face of drugstore makeup, so if you're balling on a budget, go check that out. We're gonna start by getting our hair out of our face. It kills me every single time I see a video of someone doing like a full face of makeup and their hair is like in their face and getting foundation all in it. So I always just keep my hair back. We're going to start with what people call a base. It's usually some sort of skin prep that gets your skin ready for makeup. I have dry skin, so most of the stuff that I'm recommending will be catered towards dry skin, but I usually recommend for beginners some sort of serum drop that's hydrating and some sort of moisturizer. You don't need a ton of products. These e.l.f. Thirst Burst drops really do the trick, and they're very beginner friendly. You just slather them on. And for moisturizer, I'm going in with the e.l.f. Holy Hydration Moisturizer. I find that this is also easy to use and well priced. It also is kind of nice to use products from the same line because I find that they just work better together. And if you know me, you know I love e.l.f. I did a full face of e.l.f. video and I loved almost all the products. Next, we would go in with a primer. Now, primer isn't a mandatory step, especially if your skin is well prepped, but a lot of people prefer primer to make their makeup last longer or to like reduce their pores. Products like these ones, which I'm sure you've seen all over social media, are meant to really grip the rest of your makeup. And you can use those if you want, but I find the tacky texture isn't for everyone, so isn't as beginner friendly. But this CoverGirl color correcting primer I find is much easier to work with. You just pump it out and put it everywhere. It also goes really well with our two other base products from e.l.f. that we use. Your skin should feel really hydrated, and that's how you know you're ready for your next step. There are a lot of foundations on the market, and it's really hard to pick one, but for beginners, I would go with something like a skin tint, because it's usually lighter coverage, but also it's more of a liquidy consistency. It's easier to control, and you can apply it with your hands and spread it all over the face, almost like a serum. Today I'm using the Maybelline Superstay Skin Tint. The one thing I don't like about this skin tint is it does come with a dropper bottle, which is a little bit tricky to work with. But once you get used to it, this is a fantastic skin tint and it's very affordable. So I just put some all over the face and then I'll rub it in with my hands. It's super easy to blend. If you found you put too much on or you're struggling to blend it, you can always go in with a beauty blender to absorb some of that extra product. Now you'll notice I'll do all of my liquid products first and then all of my powder products second to kind of set all of the liquid products. So first we're gonna go in with a contour. This e.l.f. Halo Glow Contour is very easy to blend and to work with, so that's why I'd recommend it for beginners. These are the spots where you'll see a lot of people contour. They're looking to chisel out their cheekbone, kind of darken the shadow along their hairline, and chisel out their nose on either side. Now, I usually go in with a brush for this step, but you're welcome to go in with a beauty blender if you feel like that tool is a little bit easier for you to use. And the idea here is you don't want to move the placement at all, just tap along where you put the product. Don't worry if you've spread it out a little bit too much, we'll touch it up later. Now that I put on my contour, I like to clean it up a little bit by applying concealer afterwards. This is the NYX Bare With Me Concealer Serum. With this product, a little goes a long way, so I apply it on the back of my hand, and then it gives me more control to decide where I'm going to place it on my face. I use a smaller brush for placement and then a larger, kind of more fluffier brush for blending, but you can also use the beauty blender. So I take a little from the back of my hand and I go under where we place that contour, just to make sure it's nice and cleaned up and precise. See how that defines the cheekbone a little bit more? I'll also take this and go under my eye and bring it up on the diagonal to make it look like my eyes are lifted. And I also put some going up onto my nose and on the top of my eyelids. And I'll go in with the fluffier end and buff that out a little bit. When you're blending two things together, if you put 50% of your brush on the one product, 50% on the other, sometimes it works just to create less of a harsh line. And I'll do that here to show you. So you can see it's still defined, but not as dramatically. Next, I would go in with a blush. This Pixie On The Glow blush is very user-friendly because you just it on and then you just tap it in. My biggest recommendation for beginners is don't use one of those blushes that you see all over TikTok that's so pigmented because they're really hard to work with. Instead, use a blush that's more buildable so you don't put on way too much and mess up your full face of makeup. I also take a little bit of this blush and put it over top of my eyebrow just to create some kind of color consistency all over my face. It also gives this really pretty sunburned effect that I like. And some people choose to do their nose as well, but that's up to you. So we've done all of our liquids. Now we're gonna go in with powder. Everyone talks about loose setting powder, and it's great, but you get it everywhere and you put way too much on. So I always like to recommend for beginners some sort of pressed powder. That way you tap your puff inside, tap a little off, and set all of the areas you put concealer. It blurs the skin and blends everything in without the mess. If you wear glasses, put this all over your nose. It'll stop your glasses from leaving a kind of weird indent. Now that we're all set, we're going in with the bronzer. I'm doing the exact same steps in the exact same order, but with powder products this time. This is the Rimmel Radiance Brick, and what I like about this is that it's a very light coverage bronzer. It allows you to be able to build it up, and it gives you a nice sheen. So I feel like this is very beginner friendly. Then we'll go in with a powder blush. I like this one because, again, it's not super pigmented, really easy to work with, but the color is so pretty. And with my powder blush, I usually make like almost a C shape around my face to bring it up into my forehead. And then across my nose. Moving on to eyeshadow, any neutrals palette will do. I'll show you what I consider to be an easy but pretty everyday eyeshadow look. I start off with a color that's like almost my skin tone but a little darker, and I tap it in all over my lid. It makes the eyes look a little bit fuller, brings them into the rest of the face. Then I use one shade darker to kind of go right in that crease right there. Always tap off excess. Sometimes I do this with my eye open so I can really identify that crease. I take an unused brush and I start moving that eyeshadow in an upwards diagonal direction. Then you'll take a small condensed brush, a little bit of highlighter, and bring it just on the inner corner. And while we have our highlighter, I like to add a little bit to the end of the nose, one line up the middle, and a little on top of our Cupid's bow. For mascara, it's really a preference thing what kind of wand you like, but I find both of these to be pretty user-friendly. This is the Sky High mascara. I usually apply it by rolling it slightly outward on my lashes to really coat them. Now for the eyebrows, I would recommend some sort of gel. I really like this one because it doesn't leave any flakes in your eyebrows, but it holds them down really nicely. And you want to take that gel and run it through all of the brows before you start shaping them. And then I usually brush up and slowly curve to brush out. Then at the tail, I go behind and just make it into more of a straight line. And lastly, we'll do lips. I take a Q-tip and just wipe off all the product that we've got on there so far. Now, the easiest way I find to do my lips is to go in with some sort of lip liner and then some sort of oil or lip gloss or lip treatment on top. Today, I'm using the Rare Beauty one. You can go as slow as you want, just lining the outside of the lips. The thing that I really like about this lip liner is, oh no, you made a mess? Who cares? Just rub them together. The lip oil, the lip treatment will fix everything. However, I will say lip stains are viral right now, and I love a good lip stain. But if you're a beginner, I would maybe stay away until you practice lining your lips a couple of times, because stains are not forgiving at all. Then we'll go in with a gloss to bring the look together. Either of these I think are really good choices. The applicators are really easy to use, very spreadable, pretty long lasting, but e.l.f. is my girl. And again, you can't go wrong with these. Just put them everywhere. Rub your lips together and all of a sudden it doesn't matter how messy your lip liner was. It works. Now you can stop here, but you can also finish off the look with some sort of setting spray to make sure it lasts longer. This one smells like hairspray and I hate it, but it works really well. And here's the final look. It takes a bit of practice, but I'm sure you look great. Comment below what other kinds of content you want to see from me, and if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.